Our hearts are with you guys trying to navigate this and all those demands. And there is that pressure, like you said, an antecedent for you and how you respond. Co-regulation comes before self-regulation. So if that child isn't able to regulate, they need our help. Problem is, co-regulation relies on self-regulation of the co-regulator. So you need to take care of yourself.
Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, where we're all about bite-sized tips and simple strategies for bright and busy new teachers.
If you're in your first few years of your career and want to make the rollercoaster ride of teaching more fun, streamlined and stress-free, you're in the right place.
We're Ashley and Alicia, the dynamic duo from Rainbow Sky Creations, and we're excited to be your teacher mentors on the go. There are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together, we're unstoppable. Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of talking to Dave Jereb, a trailblazer in paediatric occupational therapy in Australia. With over 2 decades of experience under his belt, Dave is not only an accomplished practitioner, but a true visionary in his field. His unwavering passion for delivering transformative solutions for challenging behaviour, alongside his holistic approach, has earned him recognition as a thought leader. From his award-winning Move About activity cards to his insightful book, Challenging the Story, Dave's contributions are reshaping the landscape of occupational therapy. Join us as we unpack the ABCs of behaviour and what we can do to best support students in the classroom.
When we met Dave, we knew he had to come on the podcast, and here he is today. A warm welcome to you, Dave.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everyone who's listening today, you are in for an absolute treat because Dave is one of those people who just has a zest for life. And in his role as an occupational therapist, he is going to give us some pearls of wisdom when it comes to regulation and behaviour and how it is all interlinked with students in your classroom. So let's dive straight in. And Dave, just tell us a little bit about yourself as a paediatric occupational therapist.
Which is an OT, if anyone's wondering. You know, we shortened it up. An occupational therapist is an OT. Okay, over to you, Dave.
My name's Dave. I come from a long line of carers in my family, particularly my mum's family. There's social workers and disability support workers, teachers, principals, librarians. We come from that kind of stock. My auntie led up a agency called Bernardo's out at Penrith, and it was almost like a rite of passage that all of the cousins went through and did Saturday programs and vacation care programs. The story starts with my mum offering me $20 to volunteer for a day in the holiday program. And I always say, I don't really know if it counts as volunteering if you pay $20, but it was below minimum wage. So I'm calling it volunteering. And I went along and I had fun and found out that I wanted to be an OT. And the sort of the big story that sort of the way it goes is there's lots of kids you get to play with. And there was this one kid who was different to the other kids. And he was always outside and sort of wandering the perimeter and just sort of paying more attention to his fingertips and rocking along as he went around the perimeter. And I didn't know it then, but he was autistic. And all the other kids loved me and they called me the big wolf and they were wrestling me because I had my footy jersey on that had a wolf on it. And that was fun. But one time I went out to this guy and he would be out there rain, hail or shine if he could. He was really upset if he had to be inside. He'd cover his ears and sort of moan. And so he'd just be outside in his own little world. And I went up and I passed him a basketball one time. And he just dropped it and walked off. Like, that's weird, right? Because I was 14 at this time. I'm like, I have no idea. So I picked it up and handed it to him again. And this time he kind of looked at me like, are you crazy? And then he threw it to the side and wandered off. And I was like, what's going on here? And so I went over and I grabbed it again. This time I put it in his hand. I was like a goalkeeper and I was ready. And he threw it again and I reached out and I caught it and had it back in his hand before he could know what was happening. And he kind of smirked and laughed. 2 or 3 minutes we played this game, right? And it's such a little thing. I don't know how I got into this story, but this is the story I love to tell about. I now know that was where it all started. I knew I wanted to work with kids. I knew I wanted it to be about connection. I knew I wanted to sort of crack the kids that other people found tricky. And so I mentioned all the different people in my family that have these different professions. My sister was actually an OT before me, so I got to see OT the way she was doing it. My wife's an OT. It's a very OT family. But that one guy, Jared, is a symbol of how I've done everything. It's all about connection. It's all about fun. It's all about playfulness. And it's all about, trying to help kids want to engage with others in the world. I think I went completely off track with that question, but
well, I think you gave us a backstory on how Dave became an OT and your passage to getting there. I guess the question might be, if you've got a student in your class and you feel they might need to go see an OT, what are some of the reasons a teacher might refer them to your services?
Yeah, right. And so, I guess the first part is, what is an OT?
Yeah.
And that's always something that people struggle with. People have experiences with OTs, whether it's with their grandma getting a walking frame or whatever it is. OTs, occupational therapists, work with people's occupations. So what occupies your time? So activities of daily living, functional tasks, they should be the things that our end goal is all about. There's probably a couple of different types of OTs, particularly in paediatrics. And actually OTs can work in, as I mentioned, aged care, mental health, rehab, sort of return to work kind of things, and absolutely with kids. And with kids, there's probably two camps there. It's a bit of a religious split, top down and bottom up. And top down is more skills-based, sort of drills for skills. You have problems with handwriting, you practice the letter A, you work on pencil grip. Bottom up is sort of going, well, what's the lowest common denominator if we sort of look at a developmental pyramid and maybe they've got problems with postural control, or maybe their senses aren't working quite right to wake their body up or calm their body down or give them the detail. I think you need to do both, right? I think you can't be top down or bottom up. You need to have goals that are rooted in function, in daily life activity. So for you guys, it's work roles related to getting your work done, to be able to understand the process, to be able to be where you need to be when you're meant to be there, keep your body in the group. There's social roles and play roles out on the playground as you're forming friendships and connection, and also in the classroom as well. And then at home, they might have functional roles, and we have lots of roles around being a son or a daughter and those things too. So OTs can help with all of those sort of things. In the classroom, I think people are often talking to us because there's some behavioural challenges or there's some motor problems. Gross and fine motor, I probably think the biggest things that come up. If you're talking about sensory processing, if a kid is sensitive to sound or seeking out different sorts of touch and movement, then often we'll talk to an OT, because OTs get the sensory systems probably better than most other disciplines, and we can help figure out what's the recipe here to help that child feel calm and grounded, but awake and alert, and to understand what they need to do right now in the task that you're giving them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love those words, calm and grounded, but awake and alert. And when you were talking about what an OT does, it really is that overall premise and the conclusion, I guess, the summary of what you do. And we're going to talk about why students may be referred to OTs, but I love those 4 words.
Yeah, I think that's important. So people will talk about, is this child an Eeyore? Is this child a Tigger? So an Eeyore is sort of slow and sluggish and takes a lot to get cooking, and a Tigger is sort of bouncing off the walls. But actually, ironically, a lot of Tiggers don't need to be calmed down. They need to be calmed up. Certainly me, I'm a Tigger, and you're not going to calm me by saying, calm down, Dave. You need to meet me at a level and find that rhythm and organize me and hook me into what we're doing until I can find meaning and lock into that rhythm. So yeah, it's more complex than just, do we wake them up or calm them down? But that's why you might chat to an OT.
I love that. Tigger and Eeyore. That's a little pearl of wisdom right there. Like, you've got to meet them on their level, meet them on their energy level to make that connection, and then work through that process of calming, regulating, getting on the same page.
And I like the idea that sometimes you don't need to calm them down. You need to calm them up, potentially.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to calm them down. But yeah, some people need a little more to be able to wake up and hook in. And I'm not an expert in pharmaceuticals by any means, but kind of that's what Ritalin does, right? It's a stimulant. Why do we give these kids a stimulant? And then wake their brains up so they can get to that just right where they can pay attention.
You got to find that magic formula. That's why we recruit people like yourselves. Get those OTs on board. Help us find that magic key to unlock what may be the cause of that challenging behaviour.
Well, I think it's a good collaboration too. And that's the thing I did so badly when I was a new grad OT. I was so proud of what we did, and I knew the kid, and I was an advocate, and I was coming in with guns blazing and saying, you need to set up this space, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. And now I'm like, oh my God, baby Dave, calm down. Like, this teacher has 25, 28, 30 kids in their classroom. No wonder they're saying I tried that sensory stuff and it didn't work, because you handed them a 15-page report with 72 things to do for one of their 30 kids. And so now what I'm trying to help my OTs know is, like, you've got your knowledge. Teachers are the experts in their classroom. So if you guys can collaborate, if we can collaborate and we can problem solve together, and we've got a little bit of info about this child that they don't have, if we can share that and work together to find a recipe to support that child to be engaged in what they need to do or with the people they need to engage with, that's the outcome I want. Not to be right, not to be the expert, but to add that one little extra piece of the puzzle to support you guys as the experts in your room.
Yeah, I had that exact experience, Dave, when I was a first year teacher with an OT.
Oh,
And being a first year teacher. And it wasn't the OT that they were just trying their best, but I was overwhelmed as a new teacher. And this child already was overwhelming as it was. And then the amount of suggestions and recommendations, it was just so many. And now in my much older age, I would know to look at that as a menu and pick and choose and see what works if I wasn't going to get any guidance on the 72 list of things to do. Going back to discussing it between the two of you and having that communication is really great, because I know a lot of times in the past that I've worked with OTs and other outside people that provide intervention, it isn't necessarily a conversation. And I think a conversation can be really relevant and really worthwhile for the needs of that child.
absolutely. And just on what you said about how many 72 tips or whatever, we now, when we do write a report, it's a report that we've already spoken about and problem solved some of the strategies with the teacher and make sure that it's doable. But regardless of what's in it, we always finish with 1 to 3 key points. So if you do nothing else, start here and then let's keep talking. It needs to be ongoing. It really is about collaboration and really is about time to chat, ongoing problem solving and sharing and connecting. So it used to be that I'd fly in and out in an hour and then I'd write a report and try and rush a phone call. And then I had 2 kids, and you're not meant to have favorites, but these 2 were my favorites. And I just went, I have to do these school visits. I'm just going to take as much time as I need to figure out what I need to do a good job. And what I worked out was I needed an extra half hour where I had some time with an adult that was in that room, whether it was the teacher or the SLSO. And I just wanted to chat about, well, what are you seeing? What's going on? What could make your life easier? What could make their life easier? What's available? Then I'd observe, I'd get a sense of, well, what are you wanting to see here? What's done look like, so that I know what success looks like and can see where this is going wrong. And then at the end say, hey, I noticed these things. What would you think about this or this or this? Okay, those won't work. These will work. So there's time to collaborate in that moment and then put it together in writing and then be able to follow on and problem solve together. We can bring all the people that understand the child together to get this multidimensional perspective. I think that's the key to be able to support them. And sometimes that's hard with the resources we have, but doesn't mean we shouldn't have it as an ideal.
No, it's all about the team coming together, like all the different advocates for that one child, all working together for the best possible outcome.
100%.
You wrote a book called Challenging the Story, and on the cover it says, a surprisingly simple approach to supporting children with challenging behaviour. And what we've just talked about collaboration and inclusivity and identifying needs, you kind of cover all this in this amazing, really easy to read book where you present it in this beautiful storytelling of this teacher called Jenny. And this teacher, Jenny, is in this situation where she has some challenging students, 3 in particular. And you walk us through simple ways that we can support students like that in our classroom. And now Ashley and I have read this book, and when we were reading this book, we could pinpoint students that we had taught in our years and be like, oh, Jessie, that's my so-and-so. And you mention in this book that behaviours do not occur in isolation, but are influenced by antecedents and consequences. Would you be able to break this down for us?
Can I start with behaviour?
Absolutely.
From an objective perspective. So these are the ABCs of behaviour management. They've been around for a long time. And actually the roots of this behaviourism is a bit sort of dog training-y. I don't particularly follow the people who started this, but it is a really helpful way of understanding behaviour. And when we layer in connection and care for the child and looking at them and who they are as well, then it starts to bring it into context. But the first piece is behaviour. Noting the behaviour, but being objective in that behaviour rather than subjective. So Mrs. Who in the story, and this is something that I've come across many times, talks about how we get invited into a preschool or a school because this child is attacking other kids or hitting other kids or lashing out or whatever the phrase is. And believe me, I understand for the staff and for the kids, it's really hard to figure this out. And particularly these days, really making sure that we keep everyone safe and connected is really important. To make that objective, we want to peel that back. Mrs. Who asked Jenny, all right, well, what would be an objective way of phrasing attacking other kids? And she's hitting other kids? She goes, well, that's closer. Still, it is a little bit subjective. What about moving your hand in the direction of the other child's face? And Jenny's not convinced. That feels like a step too far, right? That seems a bit silly to take it that far. We know it's hitting, right? But in Mrs. Who's experience, and actually in my experience, a lot of the time when I go there, it's often an autistic kid who hasn't really connected to other people, isn't really playful. We've been working really hard to sort of woo them into our world and want to play with other people, want to connect, want to engage, but then they're not really good at doing it. Their motor planning, their use of their body to be able to interact with other people isn't great. They're often non-speaking, so they don't have the words to pair with it. It's like when you have a baby on your lap and this little 5-month-old is gorgeous and batting away at your face and you gobble their hands and it's yummy and you have this little game. I remember when my 5-month-old then turned 10 and we had the same game, but he had a truck in his hand and smacked me. That wasn't cute, right? When you're 4 and 5 and doing it, it's really not cute, but the intention is something to really be aware of, because the way you deal with that when a kid is happy, smiling, reaching out saying, hey, let's play, they just don't have the words or the subtlety to do it, is very different to if they're angry at the other child. So that's really important to know. And if you can be there to coach and facilitate, if you can start to model appropriate ways to interact. Whereas, we often panic and we're like, no, hands down, quiet hands, no, safe hands. And for this poor kid that's been in their own little world and starting to be interested, they're like, oh man, bugger these neurotypicals. They just scream every time I try and play with people. So we want to be able to sort of understand that intention and guide that. The other example that we give is the idea of a kid who might be defensive. So maybe they're sensitive to sound or touch or visual items, things that appear in their face. And so they focused in on their toys in their own little world, and this dirty hand reaches for one of their toys and they biff them. And really that other kid was saying, hey, these cars are so cool. I want to play with you. And they've missed all of that. And so they've hit the other kid. It's not okay. I'm not saying you have to let these things happen. But what I'm saying is if you can understand that intention, if you can move from the what to the why, then you can actually plan a way of supporting them that is different. And that might be seeing it coming and saying, uh-oh, Johnny, it looks like Sarah's interested in your toys. Do you think she could have one? Oh, no, he's saying no. All right, well, let's set you up some other ones over here. Or it could be helping kids know to approach from the front or to be able to catch attention before you reach. There could be different things that are specific to that individual child that we're helping the other kids understand, and adults as well. And then there's another kid that often just feels like they're attacking and you don't know why. And it could be a trauma history. It could be a bad experience with that child. It could be any number of things. It could be bad night's sleep, what they had for breakfast. Those ones are harder to do and you need to just keep things safe and figure it out. And yes, you can set boundaries. You can set limits. You can set expectations. But knowing that you need to move from the what to the why and keep it objective, I think is really key, because sometimes that provides a lot of insights into how you're going to work with that. That's the B. I can probably be a bit quicker with the A and the C. Antecedent is what comes before it. And traditionally that's sort of right before it as sort of like a trigger or a stimulant. We talk about these words trigger. And the problem is when you're looking for the trigger, sometimes you miss the fact that there's not just an antecedent, but there's antecedents. There's multiple triggers, multiple things. That could be a bad night's sleep. Mum didn't have the favorite breakfast, so you had runny eggs, and then your shirt is in the wash, so you got your new shirt that still has the tag in it and it's irritating you, and all these things wear on you. It could be a lead up of a trauma history. It could be a whole bunch of different things, but that's all building up because you have this summative effect over time that can make you a little more edgy and vulnerable to react. I think we all know we have days when we're edgy, right? When we're just a little more reactive. And so for some of our kids who are a bit sensitive, that could come a bit earlier. And then consequences, what typically comes after it. And so we often think about consequences. How do we punish the kid? What are the consequences? But consequences, what typically happens after the event? So if you're a child and you have trouble with reading, but otherwise you're socially pretty good. And I'm going to say it, you're going to feel dumb, right? You can't read. And the teacher's going to make you read in front of the class. Well, if you go, blah, 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 and she says, right, get out. And you get to go out and look at the birds and you feel bad because you kind of like Miss Jones and you don't want to upset her, but you're glad you didn't have to show the other kids that you can't read very well. Is that going to make it less likely or more likely to happen? And so potentially that makes it more likely. Actually, there's another story that's tragic, but sort of morbidly humorous, I guess, I had this big guy I worked with and he was in a high school and he wanted me to come in because I shouldn't laugh, but it just is so confronting. He kept tipping the kid with CP out of his wheelchair and then laughing hysterically as everyone ran over to him. And so it's like, shock horror. What am I going to do with this? Like, what do you want me to do? I'm going to create this sensory diet so he doesn't tip the kid out of we're going to write a social story so that he won't, nope, we don't tip kids out of wheelchair. It's like, what am I meant to do with this? So I took a breath and I thought I'll start with observation and conversation. And what I found was he was a big dude. And I think the team were actually quite stressed and quite worried that they might set him off because he was bigger than them. But he had no history of that. He was actually really a gentle giant. And what we actually saw was they used no affect, no emotional expression on their faces. And so they were almost like still face when they interacted with him and just tried to keep it calm and get him to do his work. But honestly, I had trouble reading their cues because they were so not normal in terms of they gave no expression. And he actually needed big expression for him to be able to read it. He wasn't good at reading cues. You know, the one time that they used really clear cues, really animated, almost comical cues?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Was when he tipped this kid out of the wheelchair.
Of course, yeah.
They'd all come running and waving their hands, and they lit up like a light and sound toy, which he found hilarious. And so what I asked them to do is, so OT sometimes suggests a sensory diet, and that's some activities for your body to wake your body up or calm your body down with movement or your muscle work or some breath work. I want to put in an affect diet, an emotional expression diet. So I said, we're just going to play some games with him where maybe we pass the gym ball and get a bit of movement, but we're like, whoa, here it comes, and whoa.
Yeah.
And you know what? They put it in and he never did it again. And like, maybe that's a fluke, maybe that's a coincidence, but they were now able to fill his cup with a little bit of information that actually I think he can't read your expression, and it would help him to understand it. And also, I think he really likes affect. Could we do a bit more of that? They put that into play, and they were lovely. They really wanted to help. They were just doing the best they could with the resources they have, with a kid that was completely unique to them. And the rest of everything they did was perfect in the classroom. I just had that one insight that added to what they did. So that was consequence. Today's consequence can be tomorrow's antecedent. What you do after today can lead to it happening more or less in the future. So ABCs, behavior objective, antecedent, what comes before it, and consequence, what comes after it.
That's so well summarised. I think if you just take that piece of information and you're starting out as a first year teacher and I'd heard that, I'd be like, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. And I think that element where you're saying the observation and the conversation. And that's one thing I always say with our new teachers is that if you've got a behaviour that's happening, it's taking the time to connect with that kid, to sit down, have a chat, or even observing firsthand to see what may be the antecedent that is leading to that behaviour. And could your consequence be then exacerbating the behaviour in the days and the weeks to come? And I'm absolutely guilty of doing that. I think every teacher could raise their hand that they're guilty of doing that. But with that little bit of wisdom, you can kind of remember your ABCs. You'd be like, oh, okay, let's take a step back, breathe. What are we going to do? Let's have a look at what's happening. Chat, connect, hire an OT who can help us.
Yeah, absolutely. And OTs do it too, and parents. And like, you got two OTs in this house, and sorry to throw Kathy under the bus. Sorry, Kathy, but you know, we get this wrong all the time, right? So it's not about being perfect. It's not about getting it right. It's just about getting it right enough to help the kids start to move forward and picking yourself up and learning from it. It's hard too, because we have the patterns we were raised with as well.
Absolutely. I think you having the knowledge to be able to make the change and embracing that mistakes are going to happen, but you pick yourself up, you move on from it. And I love in the book how Jenny had realised she'd been doing a bit of a disservice to this dear boy called Henry. Like having that time to connect with Henry and being like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't do right by you, but let's move forward with this together. And I think that's so powerful. And that is a big shift, a generational shift on how we teach, how we parent, how we communicate with young children.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm proudest in my parenting is that Kathy and I say sorry a lot, because we stuff up a lot and we get it wrong and we're tough. There are times, well, I am. She's actually quite lovely and mostly perfect, but I get it wrong all the time in my parenting. However, I say sorry, and I feel like that is a good thing, and I mean it, and I try to make changes and we work it out. It's not about being perfect all the time, and actually resilience doesn't come from perfection. There's a famous psychologist, Donald Winnicott, and he talks about the good enough parent, and it could be the good enough OT or the good enough teacher as well. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be good enough, and actually resilience comes from repair. Right? So if you're always perfect and the child is never challenged, they have no opportunity to recover and realize that, well, when things get tough, I can see a light, I can recover. Now, we don't have to then go and try to rev them up so that we can repair. We have plenty of opportunities just by being human, but resilience comes through the repair in those breaches that occur.
It's also great modeling with kids, especially young kids, to say that you're sorry, for them to see that it's uncomfortable for you, because no one really likes saying sorry. Like, I mean, I say sorry to my own kids too. And inside I'm like, oh, but it's good for them to see it. And when my littlest one, she's 4, I prompt her, what can we do to make this better? And she says to me, Mummy, I do not like saying sorry. And I'm like, nobody does. Nobody likes saying sorry, but it's something that we need to do to repair this relationship and make it better. So we were talking to our new teachers inside our membership just on the weekend, and one of them was talking about just some undesirable behaviours in her classroom and how to go about helping those children, but also calming the classroom down. And I was discussing with her about how behaviour is really a communication. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's communicating something. It's not always like I'm trying to tell you something, but it, yeah, it's information. So there's an unmet need there. I do think that kids want to be loved and accepted and they want to do the right thing. They come with a history. They come with a package, a developmental profile, individual differences. There's a lot of complexity there. That behavior is telling you that there's an unmet need. There's not a goodness of fit to that particular task for them and their nervous system and what they have. There's something missing. Either it's not the just right challenge for them, it's not meaningful for them, they're revved up from what happened before, or they're too sleepy to pay attention, or they're overwhelmed by the tag in their shirts or the noise of the air conditioning. So yes, absolutely, I do think that behavior is a cue that something's not going right for that child to start to dig a little deeper. And usually it gives you some good information about what that might be.
Yeah, there's a behavior specialist on Instagram. I don't know if you'd ever come across her. Her handle is Good Morning Ms. Foster, and she's done some amazing work and research. And she said something to our members last year when we had her in as a guest. And it's quite confronting for a teacher, but she said, you know what? Sometimes you're being boring. And the behavior that you may be seeing from the child is something major. It might just be because they are a little bit bored. I think that that's a good thing too, because not every single little thing that happens in our class needs a deep dive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it's true. If the kids aren't engaged, if they're not connected, and connection is everything to me. And so there is that social connection, but it's just connected with what you're doing as well. If you're not connected, you're not going to learn. And if you're not regulated, you're not going to learn. So if you're not in that sort of a good enough space to pay attention, if you're too sleepy or too revved, you're not going to learn. And really, my hot tip for that is if that's what you're seeing in your class and it's just not working, stop doing what you're doing. There's no point pushing through a lesson plan because you've got to get it done. And it's a horrible experience for everyone. Like I would like you just to go for a run on the oval for 10 minutes and then try again.
Yeah.
There's a few different things, but just give up and have fun. Like get joy. Joy is a connection experience. I do think sometimes we just push on when things are tough. I think that, boring is one of I think in OT we have a model called the PEO, person, environment, occupation. And they're sort of the three things that can break down for a kid. So there is something about their package, right? I talked about their developmental capacities, their individual differences, their makeup, their history. Then there's environment. So there are sensory and physical elements of their environment that can be working for them or not working for them. And actually OTs are pretty good sometimes at coming in and going, their feet are dangling they're not touching the floor, so they don't have that support to support their posture to then be able to hold a pencil without having a strangle tight pencil grip. So those sort of things can happen. And then occupation is really the task. So the task is the task at the Just Right Challenge. Is the task meaningful? So is there anything they can actually associate it with? Because I can tell you there's very little as an adult I do if it's not meaningful to me. Now I am a business owner. I get to choose the PD I do. I get to choose the things I watch. But yeah, it's really hard. You actually don't learn much when it's boring, which is a concern about some of schooling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think,
it is.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned that is that ability to, you've got that challenging student, perhaps have a look at what their interests are, the real life you can bring into your classroom to get them motivated and engaged. And I love how you said, if things aren't going well and the wheels are falling off, just stop. And that would be my mantra as I got through further as a teacher was like, if this isn't working, why am I pushing through? And sometimes I'd be there going, I'm pushing through because of the pressures of the curriculum. I'm pushing through because of the pressures of the school, expectations. I'm pushing through because of the expectations of what the parents are wanting from me. But at the end of the day, you have to go, no one's going to learn when they're dysregulated, they're feeling out of sorts. So make sure you're just being conscious of that. If you're noticing there's a challenging behavior that's starting to have that ripple effect in the classroom, like your simple suggestion there on just get out and have a run, get some fresh air and come back in and reset is a real simple strategy to help everybody.
Yeah, my wife and I often sort of go, we live in this beautiful country. Why do we do so much indoors?
Yes.
You know, and we had COVID happen and it was like all this stuff about the classrooms and no matter where you stand on the fence, whether you're masks or no masks or we should be or we should lock down or what, it's like, why didn't we teach more outside? Just go under a tree.
Yeah.
Just go, whatever. But anyway, that's our thing with that as well. But
it's the safety of the four walls, right? You know, it's like, it's a boundary. No one can get out. No one can get in. We'll just keep safe. But I say even that suggestion there of taking your classroom outside, I think immediately, if that becomes a habitual practice of your teaching, you're going to notice a drastic change in your students, just that fresh air and in yourself. I think that's really important because I think as we are adults, we have better executive function than the 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds that we may be teaching teaching, but there are things you were mentioning, those antecedents, those things that are happening beforehand that can get us a little bit dysregulated. And I know when students are starting to get dysregulated and I've had a really tough day, week, term, it can set me off. So what are some simple strategies teachers could use to support and enhance students' regulation skills that I'm sure would help benefit the teacher as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to go back a step, you mentioned all the pressures and all the pressures that are on teachers to be able to meet like all those things. 100% they're there. And so our hearts are with you guys trying to navigate this and all those demands. And there is that pressure, like you said, an antecedent for you and how you respond. Co-regulation comes before self-regulation. So if that child isn't able to regulate, they need our help. Problem is co-regulation relies on self-regulation of the co-regulator. So you need to take care of yourself to some degree. So it is okay to be selfish and think, what do I need to some degree? And my first thing I would say, if things are starting to get a bit rowdy, chances are if a child is dysregulating or a classroom's dysregulating, you're co-dysregulating with them. They're the stronger rhythm. And you need to be able to then, I want to say get control, but I don't mean be controlling. You need to get control of yourself and your own heart rate and your own breath rate. Take a breath. Like seriously, that sounds like too simple of an option, but really take a breath and get yourself grounded and figure out what's my feelings and what's the pulse of the room I'm getting. Take the breath so that you can be the stronger rhythm so that then you can support their nervous system to get back on track. Connection and regulation go hand in hand. So I talked about co-regulation comes before self-regulation. Co-regulation and connection are sort of the same thing. And so if we can get connection, that's really valuable. Even if it's just a few seconds, it doesn't need to stretch out longer to really sink in. But I feel it with my kids. If I can get 10 seconds, just linger a little bit on that connection, it just softens and grounds and you can be an anchor to support them from that. If I had my choice, there are a couple of kids in your class that are the tricky ones, I would really make an effort to greet each of those by name in a positive way. They often don't get to hear their names in a positive way. I would get down on their level below their eyes, crouch down in front of their desk and just say, hey, Johnny, it's great to see you today. I really think we're going to have a good day. I'm here to support you if you need anything. I'm wearing this orange shirt today. So if things get tricky, look out for my orange shirt and come find me, right? Just rehearse a little plan so that they can do it, but also let them know they've got an ally because often it can be quite isolating for these kids that have these challenging behaviors. When you're looking at a whole class that's dysregulating, take a breath, get grounded. Or an individual child, get grounded and then connect. I think connection is the key. So with a bigger class, that's much harder. Now, where I see teachers do it really well and OTs too, I think rhythm is really valuable. So different clapping things that you can set as part of your pulse of your room. Sometimes using a whisper is actually more intense than a big loud voice. You know, that kind of clap once if you hear me, clap twice if you hear me, can catch through the room and it's quite contagious. I think sometimes knowing that actually a whisper is often more intense than yelling is a really powerful thing to be aware of when you're thinking about capturing attention. And to me, it's all about getting connection, getting focused and really getting rhythm and regulation back on track. And OTs would like people to have movement breaks and use their muscles are a really good way to feel grounded. Breath and breathing and mindfulness things are good too. So if you're losing the class, if maybe they're not in the right brain space, you might need to actually calm them up. You might need to go for a run on the oval. Maybe you do some chair push-ups. Maybe you do some jumping games. I'd probably say with the movement stuff, find your defined spaces, use rhythm to do it, rhythmic songs. I think those things are really the key. What happens, OTs often say, this kid needs to move and use their muscles. And sometimes the classroom gets a bit crazy when you do that and you don't have, it's okay to have boundaries. All right, we're going to do a movement game. We can do it if you stay within your zone, like in front of your chair, you're not touching your neighbors and this is happening. If we can't do it, then we'll have to go back to doing work and we can't do this activity. Sometimes just setting the limits are a really helpful thing. Gym balls under kids is something that OTs love to suggest and rarely teach people how to use them well. And so just a little prompt of if it stays under your butt and it doesn't fly away, we can use it and it will help you do your handwriting. If it flies across the room, it means it's not helping today, so we'll put it away and we'll go back to the chair. So sometimes those little things can help too. But connection for regulation, it is great for movement, muscles, breath, and rhythm is always a really good way to organize it.
Yeah.
As a side note, Dave, what do you think of the wobble chairs?
Yeah, so wobble cushions, gym balls, wobble chairs, tea stools. There's a whole bunch of things that I think potentially can be really great if they're really great. Like that's the thing, right? So if it helps kids. So actually to be able to do your work at the desk, you need your postural muscles to be awake and alert. Some of our kids are a little lower tone. They take a little more to get their muscles kicking in. And so just a little bit of movement can be alerting. So whether that's just a gentle bounce on a gym ball or whether it's a little wriggle on a wriggle cushion or a wriggle stool can be really helpful. I think more often than not, not, they fail because we don't give them the expectations. We don't teach them how to use it. We don't give a few trials of it to let them know how to use it. There's a lot of reasons it can go wrong. And I think that there's some good science as to why it's a good suggestion, but we need to help them know how to use it to be supportive of what they're doing. If it helps you do this, we can use it. If it doesn't, we can't. I'd love every classroom just to have those simple wobble cushions, those air pillows that sometimes use for Pilates. I'd love to just see 10 in the classroom and you rotate them for the first week and then stick them up the back and any kid that wants them can go get them. And I think you'd find kids would actually use them pretty well after a little while, but take some learning because they're fun and exciting. If you're on a wobble cushion and you're a 7-year-old, what are you going to do? If you're on a gym ball, what's the first thing you would do as a 7-year-old boy sitting on a gym ball? You're going to bounce and see whether you can hit the ceiling if you're not given any limits or expectation.
And if you're my 2-year-old, you're going to put that ball right under your tummy and do some superwoman dives off it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think what you're saying there is really beneficial to any teacher that's listening, that when you're introducing something new, that it becomes incorporated into, I've got to cover these expectations in my classroom. And this is one of them. If you're incorporating brain breaks, you're teaching the class on what that looks like, the what. And I think sometimes we might do a disservice by the students by not giving them the why behind what we're doing it.
Yeah.
And when I have flexible seating in my classroom, that first couple of weeks was us getting to know the different seating, why we might choose to sit on the gym ball, why we might choose to sit on the wobble chairs, or why we might just sit on a stool. Them knowing the reason for why we're doing it, to help with their muscle tone, to help them focus, to wake their brains up, all those different reasons. So giving them the time, but also setting those boundaries and expectations on what that looks like in the classroom. But like you said before as well, having that time to have a play of it. Like that first hour is like, go nuts. All right, let's see what you can do with the gym ball. Okay, let's see how we can use it to benefit our learning.
Bubblegum's the other one. OTs love bubblegum and like for kids. And I'm going to tell you, bubblegum is super organizing. It's heavy work for the mouth. It's in your mouth, which is the center of your body. So it really pulls you in and I'm not talking like a piece of extra. I'm talking like 3 pieces of Hubba Bubba, like get that jaw working. And people are like, oh no, they can't have bubblegum. They'll stick it under the desk. My response to that is, you know who sticks bubblegum under the desk? Kids who aren't allowed to have bubblegum.
Yes.
If you say, we can have bubblegum tomorrow, if every piece of bubblegum goes in the bin today, I promise you, every bit of bubblegum is going into the bin.
Yeah.
So some of those things around setting expectations, but I don't know that I'll ever win the battle of getting bubblegum in the classroom, but I promise you with our kids, it's a really powerful thing when it's a powerful thing. We had a kid come for an assessment and we have a Sydney, Central Coast and Newcastle clinic. And we had an opening for an assessment at the Sydney one, but not at the Central Coast. So someone traveled from the Central Coast to do their assessment. They traveled to Sydney, even though they were going to get treatment at the other clinic. So they'd driven an hour and a half and they did the assessment and that was about an hour or so. And then they went into the play space and the therapist went, oh, you got some bubblegum. Where did you get that from? And he said, Mum gave it to me before I left the house, which would have been 2.5 hours earlier.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I'm telling you, if a kid is still chewing bubblegum after 2.5 hours, it's helping their body. They're not doing it for the sugar.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like bubblegum.
I was not expecting this conversation to go to bubblegum, honestly.
I'm liking it though. I'm off to go buy some Hubba Bubba and maybe it could help my 3.5-year-old.
Maybe.
Now, David, you mentioned in the book that it takes a village to raise a child. And when we have a look at that in the perspective of the education system, we're kind of saying it takes a school, it takes the community to raise a child. And I think there's a lot of times where we have situations where there's challenging behaviour. The primary teacher may be worried about what's going to happen when they're not there to be their co-regulator, to support them. And I think when I was working at my last school and I had some really challenging behaviours that weren't so ordinary at the type of private school that I was working at, we started to see change when the principal stepped in, when the deputy stepped in, when we were having good collaborations with the school psychologists, with the parents and that student, and we were coming together cohesively to be able to all sing to the same tune to support that student. How best could we be doing that with your skill set and what you could teach us as an OT?
Yeah, so Move About, our clinic, our key organising principle is we support the people who support the kids. And that's really important. That's our families that we work with. It's our team members on our team and that's our community. I think that's the key to supporting kids in a school and the community is to be able to support the people who are supporting them and to have that village approach. And so, yeah, for me, a good school is a school where a teacher can say, oh my God, I'm having trouble with this kid. I need a hand, right? If you can be brave enough to ask for help and be in an environment that you know is safe enough to say that without criticism, that's a good start, because not only should we not expect people to sort this out on their own, it's often not possible. It really does. You're not there. You're not there on the playground every minute of every day to be able to sort out the problems. And we want the kid to be able to figure them out themselves, but we want them to have allies to do it too. So some of it is about the resources you need for the classroom, the resources they need to coach them through interactions on the playground. One example that I sort of give in the book, but is a real life example too, is a child that was having lots of troubles in the classroom. And this poor teacher, God bless her soul, said, I know every day he's going to go out on that playground, he's going to hit another kid. And so in my brain, but also in Mrs. Who's words in the book, it was, well, if you know that, you need a behavior management plan, because you're the one with executive functions, right? You can predict that. You can't just let that happen. Now, this poor teacher was out of her mind because she didn't see that there was a path to be able to engage a whole school to support this child when they were out there. But there was. And so we were able to sort of then pull it back together and reconnect as a group in this IEP and say, well, who's out there on lunch? And it's like, well, there's a teacher on duty, and what do they look like? And they wear an orange vest, I think, at that school, and they have a whistle and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, all right, so that's pretty easy to find, right? Someone with an orange vest that could be a helper person. Although it's not for our kids often. When they're dysregulated, they flip their lids and they don't have access to their thinking and reasoning brain. So that makes it really challenging. What we came up with in that example was that Johnny, aka Jesse in the book, has to deliver something to that teacher on duty. So they have something that's like a special thing that they have to deliver. Maybe it's the whistle. Maybe it's a ball for the kids that play on the handball courts, or whatever it is. Maybe it's just a note, and they have to deliver that. And then that teacher can get down on their level and connect. I don't know if you're picking up that I'm quite big on connection, but if you can connect, you can be the anchor, you can be a co-regulator. Get down the level, connect and say, hey, Johnny, thank you so much for delivering this. I hope you have a great time on the playground. Just know I've got this orange vest on. If you need anything, or if you have any troubles out there, just come find me and I'll help you figure it out. And they may or may not then be able to use that strategy, but also you've located them from the start. You can watch where they go, and you can keep an eye on that area, so that if you see the volume go up a little bit, you can wander over and problem solve when it gets to 40, rather than when it gets to 100 and everyone's flipped their lids and someone's getting biffed. And so if we can get schools that can be supporting kids, that doesn't take a whole lot of work to work that out for the 3 or 4 or 5 kids that might be an issue for. But little strategies like that, knowing that we're supporting the people who support the kids in a variety of different settings, and that we're there as an ally for the child.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful when we can do that. And like, the reality of it is, I know every single person in every single school out there got into it because they want to help kids.
Yeah.
I know, 100%. Now, there's some people that are a bit jaded, and there's some people that are a bit anxious or terrified or whatever it is, and people that struggle with the capacity. But so we need to pull together, and we need to support those people to support those kids, and pull together as a group to be able to support the kids in their everyday life and in the school.
Yeah, you can feel the difference when you know someone's got your back, and the kids can feel the difference when they know they've got my back.
Yeah, so that's where I would be happy to give this book to any principal that wants it. They just have to reach out to me, and I will gladly send them a copy, because I'm proud of this work. I think it's an easy to read book that gets across some good messages. The most important thing for me is actually not the behavior management, but it's the how do we pull together as a group around this cause to help kids.
There's so many pearls of wisdom and gems in this book. We will put the link to the book Challenging the Story in the show notes if anyone wants to check it out. It's a bestseller now, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, it is. It's an Amazon international #1 bestseller.
How amazing is that? Congratulations to you.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to our amazing listeners, because I think what you have shared today is really powerful and necessary. So if anybody wants to get their hands on the book, where's the easiest place they could get it, Dave?
Amazon. Amazon is the easiest. If they're looking for bulk, they can reach out to Moveabout, and we can probably do that cheaper for 5 or more copies. But Amazon, 1-day delivery, go for it.
Perfect. And then our listeners that want to connect with you after the show, do you have an Instagram page or something that they can connect with?
Yeah, this old man found Instagram at 43 years of age, and I'm trying my hardest. It's actually a bit of fun. But yeah, Dave Jereb _OT is where you will find me on Instagram. And I think there is some good educational material on there. And I also think we have a bit of fun as well. So yeah, I think I'm worth a follow.
You've been doing a great job. We've been chatting on Instagram and you do a great job. I will pop the link to the book and to your Instagram in the show notes. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you guys for having me.
Dave Jereb, what an absolute legend. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we really enjoyed this conversation with Dave. Having someone on the podcast that's motto is we support the people that support the kids really is what Rainbow Sky is about. We're here supporting you guys that are out there doing that hard work in the classroom and supporting the kids. So thank you for all the work that you do as a teacher, and thank you to Dave for all the wisdom that he shared today. Dave is actually coming into our membership Transform Your First Years this month, and he's going to do a special session with our new teachers, which is going to be an amazing experience for them. As you heard, I had an experience with an OT in my first year, and I wish that I had the opportunity to connect with someone like Dave to really ask those questions and nut a few things out that I just didn't understand as a new teacher. So it's not too late to join Transform Your First Years. If it's something that you've been thinking about and you think, wow, I'd love to have that session with Dave where people can come in and ask their questions, and he's going to be talking a lot about regulation and some different strategies and tactics we can use to help them regulate individually and co-regulate. Come and join us. The doors are open. I'll make sure that I pop the link to Transform Your First Years in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend, spread the love, and until next time, there are rainbows ahead, and together we're unstoppable.